So what's happening with your show, man? What are you doing? What's the latest?
Oh shit, you're just gonna go right for the big one, huh?
Let's get in there, man.
All right, Fast and Loud is no more.
After years as one of Discovery's biggest hits, Fast and Loud is suddenly gone, and the millions who made it a phenomenon are handed a single explanation that explains nothing. Richard Rawlings calls it the right decision and says no more. But that four-word answer was built to bury something, because behind those garage doors sat fired mechanics, a barn find exposed as a fake, and a feud that ended with manure dumped across the driveway on camera.
Everything you guys built, figured you could use a little more. I got Jesse autograph, man! That's Jesse James' autograph! Whoa!
None of it was the real reason on its own. The truth is bigger, quieter, and it was hiding in plain sight the whole time. The man who built the monkey. That silence is exactly where the questions breed. A show like this does not just stop, not when it still has the ratings, the fans, and a network that wants more of it. Something had to break behind those walls. To see what? You have to start with the one man the whole machine was bolted to. Every empire needs a face, and this one belonged to Richard Rawlings, a guy charismatic enough to sell sand in the middle of a desert. He grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, working beside his father and buying his first car when he was just 14 years old. So cars were in his blood long before television ever came sniffing around. For a while, he played it safe in the printing business, the kind of steady living that pays the bills and bores you to death. Then he did the thing most people only ever talk about doing. He sold the printing company, cashed out his safety net, and opened Gas Monkey Garage in Dallas, built around one stubborn idea: drag old, broken, forgotten machines back from the dead and make them beautiful again. Nobody was lining up to bet on that idea. A garage full of rust and stubbornness is not exactly a business plan, and for a long stretch, it barely paid for itself. That gamble did not just pay off, it caught the eye of the Discovery Channel, and Rawlings' whole life split into a before and an after. Here is the thing about him, though. He was never the owner watching from behind an office window. He was down on the floor with a wrench in his fist and grease packed under his nails, arguing over builds like his name was stamped on every single one, because it was. His personal collection said everything you needed to know. A 1968 Shelby Mustang, a 1977 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am. Machines he did not just restore, but reimagined, and over the years, he sold 28 of his custom builds and cleared more than $10 million doing it. That is the man Discovery handed a camera to, and that is the man who, years later, would walk away without ever once telling anyone the real why. How a garage became a global hit. The show almost did not feel like a plan at all. Discovery producers had been watching the online noise building around Rawlings' builds, and they caught something the rest of the industry had missed. Here was a guy turning nobody cars into gleaming, valuable machines while running his mouth and grinning like he was sitting on a secret. So they offered him a show, and Rawlings, a man who never met a risk he did not like the look of, said yes before he was even sure the thing could work. Reality television is a graveyard, and plenty of shows with far better odds had already sunk without a trace. So the hesitation was fair. Those doubts died fast. The second Fast and Loud started airing, it grabbed an audience and flat refused to let go. And the reason was the formula humming under all the noise. Buy something broken and worthless, transform it into something people would fight over, then sell it for real money, all against a ticking clock. Viewers were not watching cars get fixed. They were watching a gamble in slow motion, a bet that might blow up in everyone's face, and when Rawlings threw cash at a car far more likely to lose money than make it, that tension became the whole reason to tune in. Week after week, people showed up not to learn about cars, but to find out whether he would win big or get burned, and that hook proved almost impossible to shake. By its fourth season, the show had truly found its rhythm, playing out like a scripted drama with cast shakeups and cliffhanger sales that kept millions glued to it. If you love the untold stories sitting behind the shows that shaped car culture, take 1 second right now and subscribe, because this only gets stranger from here. And it does get strange, because underneath all that runaway success, something was already rotting, and it ran straight through the heart of the garage. The pressure nobody saw on screen. Behind the triumphant reveals and the big sale numbers, Fast and Loud was a pressure cooker with the lid rattling. The deadlines were real, the money was real, and the pile of oversized personalities crammed into one garage did not always get along, no matter how the edit made it look. A show built on huge egos and bigger stakes was always going to throw sparks, and over time, those sparks started shoving people out the door, one at a time. At first it looked like ordinary churn, then it started stacking up, and the fans noticed a pattern they could not unsee. Every season seemed to lose another familiar face, and nobody involved was ever in a hurry to say why. The storylines began repeating. The drama started feeling staged, a little too convenient. And the same crowd that fell in love with the raw, scrappy energy of the early seasons started quietly wondering if the magic was already gone. These were not casual viewers either. This was a fan base that treated the show like appointment television, and they could feel the shift long before anyone would dare name it. Here is the part that never added up. By every visible measure, this show should have run for years more. It had the ratings, it had the loyal, hungry fan base. It had a network that wanted more of it. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, the order came down to kill it, blindsiding almost everyone who worked on it. To understand why, you have to look hard at the one person the entire thing was built around, because the moment he flinched, all of it started to come apart. The quiet exit. Nobody explained. Richard Rawlings was Fast and Loud. Pull him out of the equation and there is no show, no empire, no reason to tune in. So when he started drifting away from it, that was the real beginning of the end, whether anyone would say it out loud or not. The reasons only leaked out afterward, and they painted a very different man than the bulletproof showman the fans thought they knew. By his own telling, later on, Rawlings had started to feel creatively trapped. The guy who once thrived on risk had gotten too comfortable, and the format that made him famous had hardened into a cage around him. He could not talk openly about the parts of his garage and his ideas that actually lit him up. And it reportedly went further than boredom, because his deal with Discovery came bundled with strict rules, including a clause that barred him from saying anything negative about the network, with heavy financial penalties hanging over him if he ever crossed it. Picture building the most recognizable garage on cable, and then being legally forbidden from speaking your own mind about the people airing it. So whenever anyone asked him straight out why the show ended, he dodged. He would call it the right decision and leave it right there, offering nothing to fill the silence. The widely accepted read is that clashes with the producers and the steady bleed of the original team pushed him toward the door far more than any tidy explanation ever admitted. Walking away was strategic. It let him guard his brand and pour everything into what came next. A life online where no contract could tell him what he was allowed to say. And the second he was gone, the ugliest parts of the story floated straight up. The firings that turned fans against him. Start with Tom Smith and Jordan Butler, because their exits hit different. Both were respected, familiar hands around that garage, guys the fans had watched for years, and then one day they simply were not there anymore, with no explanation offered anywhere on screen. That kind of silence breeds rumors, and it did. Eventually it came out that Rawlings had fired them, which only sharpened the one question nobody could answer. Why? The way Smith tells it, it comes down to one small human moment. Picture it. A fan is standing in the shop, a fan living with cystic fibrosis, and all he wants is a single photo with one of the custom cars. A manager says no. The mechanics look at this guy, look at each other, and quietly wave him in anyway, letting him have his picture. It is exactly the kind of small mercy you would expect a garage full of gearheads to be proud of. And according to Smith, that is the exact moment that ends up costing them their jobs. Whether every detail of that account holds up or not, the damage detonated the instant it spread. It painted Rawlings as cold, out of touch, and dismissive of the very fans who built him into a star. And it landed at the worst possible cultural moment, a time when the public had gotten quick, almost eager, to turn on anyone who suddenly looked like a villain. Viewers walked, convinced they had finally seen the real man hiding behind the grin. But the sick fan story was only one of the fires threatening to burn the whole thing down. And the next one arrived by the truckload. The feuds and the fakes. It arrives on the back of a truck. Jesse James, the custom bike icon from Monster Garage, had crossed paths with Rawlings on the show, and two giants of the car world under one roof should have been pure electricity. For a minute it was. Then Rawlings took some public shots at James, the goodwill evaporated, and James answered in the most unforgettable way imaginable. He pulls up to Gas Monkey Garage and dumps a massive load of horse manure across the driveway, on camera, for the entire world to see. A legendary rivalry curdles into a public relations disaster in real time, and plenty of viewers came away thinking a lot less of everyone standing in it. You do not forget footage like that, and neither did the audience, who started seeing the show less as a garage and more as a circus. But the feuds, loud as they were not even the biggest credibility problem. That one belonged to the builds themselves. In one heavily hyped storyline, the show claimed it had uncovered rare, original Pontiac Firebird prototypes stashed away in a barn, supposedly worth around $325,000 each. It was the exact kind of barn-find fairy tale that makes lifelong car people lose their minds. There was just one problem sitting under all of it. It was not true. The so-called prototypes turned out to be early production models, not the priceless one-of-a-kind unicorns the show sold them as. And then came the detail that stung the most. Similar cars later surfaced on eBay for around $30,000 apiece, a tiny fraction of the number broadcast to millions of trusting viewers. The story tore through the forums, and it took a real, lasting bite out of the trust the show had spent years carefully building. Once the fans started asking what was actually real, they could not stop, and what they found next was somehow worse. When the show stopped feeling real. Here is where it got ugly to watch. Rawlings' instincts on camera slowly stopped looking like genius and started looking like a man gambling with the lights off. He kept sinking real money into cars that turned out to be rotted far past reason, some of them nearly 80% rust once the truth got scraped out from under the paint. And his part swap fixes had a habit of breaking 3 other things on the way to solving one, turning quick jobs into long, expensive misfires. The show that once celebrated smart, savvy flips was now quietly documenting slow-motion money pits. Every reveal that used to feel like a triumph now carried a nagging question underneath it, which was whether any of this still actually added up. Then came the episode a lot of fans still point to as the exact breaking point. A whole installment devoted to building a replica of the car from Knight Rider as a birthday gift for a friend. Big budget, big build-up, and somehow it landed completely hollow because Rawlings seemed to spend more of it touring around Europe than turning a single wrench. Viewers flatly called it fake, and the word stuck to it like tar. It was the clearest proof yet that Fast and Loud had drifted a long way from real restoration into pure staged spectacle. By the time the end finally came, a lot of longtime fans were not shocked in the slightest. They were relieved. But the cameras cutting off did not end the story, because where these people scattered says almost as much as why they ran. Where the crew landed. Rawlings walked away like a man who had been waiting to for a long time. Free of the network's leash, he leaned harder than ever into his own thing, expanding the garage, chasing rare cars, and building an audience directly online where nobody could edit him into a villain. He kept selling restored builds and started hunting some of the most coveted machines on the entire planet. The cancellation that gutted the fans seemed to barely touch him, which told you everything about how ready he had been to walk. Aaron Kaufman, the quiet mechanical genius who anchored so many of those builds, took his own road entirely. He left Gas Monkey in 2017, citing only vague personal reasons on the way out the door, and threw himself into a Dallas shop restoring vintage Ford F-100 trucks. His obvious talent pulled Discovery right back to him for a solo series called Shifting Gears, though it lasted a single season before the ratings quietly ended it. And then there is Sue, the sharp-tongued upholsterer from the ASM shop, whose orbit crossed Rawlings for years. Fans absolutely adored her. She needled him without mercy, nicknamed the whole operation the Ass Monkey Garage, and never once let his famous penny-pinching slide by unmentioned. On screen, though, she often got boxed into small, rushed jobs that never came close to showing what she could really do. And she has suggested that reality television simply never captured the real craft behind her work. Then she drifted off the show with no official word at all, right in the middle of that long parade of departures. A money dispute, creative friction, a garage quietly turning into a showroom. Nobody ever settled it, And that unanswered exit points straight at the question the whole show was built to hide. Every exit chipped away at the same illusion that this was a real garage full of real people, and Sue vanishing without a word may have chipped the loudest. So, why did it really end? So, here is what they never told the fans. Fast and Loud did not die from one clean, fatal blow, and that is the actual revelation, not a dodge. There was no single scandal big enough to carry the blame alone, no lone villain, no dramatic cancellation notice handed down from on high. It was all of it, at once, stacking up until the weight finally came down. A star who felt creatively trapped and reportedly muzzled by his own contract. A revolving door of talent that bled the chemistry out of the garage. Firings that turned the fans against the man they built up. Barn-find fairy tales exposed as fakes. Money pits dressed up as triumphs. And an audience that slowly, quietly stopped believing a single word of what it was watching. Any one of those cracks a show can survive. All of them at once feeding off each other is how an empire quietly comes down. Rawlings summed it all up his way, calling it the right decision and refusing to say one syllable more. But strung together, every one of those quiet fractures tells the fuller, more honest story that four-word answer was built to hide. The show that made a living legend out of a Dallas garage owner did not end in a crash. It ended in a slow, deliberate walk away from a spotlight that had started costing him more than it was ever worth. And in a strange way, that quiet walk might just be the most honest thing Fast and Loud ever actually did. No villain to headline, no single scandal to blame, just the quiet, layered version of the story the credits were never once actually going to show you. So, what do you think really pulled the plug on all of it? The behind-the-scenes chaos, the slow collapse of trust with the fans, or Richard Rawlings simply deciding the whole thing had finally run its course? Drop your theory down in the comments and let the debate run. And if you want more untold stories behind the shows and the machines you grew up on, hit that subscribe button and stick around, because there is always another one waiting.